Okay, so any declarations of interest? None. Right, thank you. And moving through to confirmation of the minutes on page 6.
Happy to move.
Councillor Holding.
Happy to have your second.
Councillor Wolfstein, any comments?
I just refer to page 8, Ainsley. Under 4.1, the third paragraph, wording is to, there's that stakeholders that have been happening behind the scenes. We should be behind the scenes. One word. Okay, that's fine.
Yep.
Yep, one correction, thank you.
Anything else? So we adopt those with that one change. Those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Now moving on to page 10 and the draft plan beyond. So ask Ms. Jorgensen just to introduce this one.
Thank you. This report is relatively self-explanatory. It follows on from the hearing held 14th September with the Harvey Area Committee and submitters, and then from a discussion we had around changes that are wanted to be that the committee would want to discuss formally, which is in this meeting, and regarding changes to the harbour plan. So this meeting here has taken the changes that the Harbour Committee would like to consider it in the workshop, and is now in front of you to formally recommend those to council. So the process here is once the Harbour Committee is happy with the scheduled changes, which is in reporting, then it would recommend those to be approved by council, after which the Harbour Plan document will be updated.
So I think what we'll do is work our way through those things that have been raised in our last session and just see if there's anything amongst that you may not have captured or want to hold a discussion on. Once we've done that, then we'll go to anything else. I'm sure that we've covered everything best as possible. So attachment 1 on page 14. So I'll probably deal with a page at a time.
And probably one more clarification is in the recommended changes, we've tried to write the writing as it would appear in itself.
Any comments from members first? Okay, we'll go to Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, there are 4 pages that so I'm not going to do this on every page, but could I just say on the proposed correction on page 5, I think it's right, but I think it also may create unforeseen problems if the wording doesn't include an extra word. I would like that change to read, this includes the retention, maintenance and ongoing use of identified historic places, buildings and structures. And I would argue that the risk otherwise is some people may see it meaning that everything, absolutely everything has to be kept. You know, and there is debate about what is historic, and indeed at the workshop there was discussion as to certain elements of the Holmes Wharf and whether they should or shouldn't be kept. So I would just want to qualify that with that additional word, identify.
What page are you on?
On page 14.
He's referring to the page number in the draft plan itself.
Okay. On that page.
It's the second change down,
second
change number 2.
So I think that would be useful. Okay. So, anything else on just that one on that page? Okay, anything else on there? We'll go to the agenda page 15.
Well, just before you go there, on number 3, new map to be inserted into the plan. We haven't seen that map yet, but somewhere today, I would like to bring up council-owned land and whether or not it could be for sale. We discussed it last time round. I think that we left it on a case-by-case basis. But I've had an approach from someone that I think could do with some discussion today at some stage, just when it suits you.
Okay. Yeah, there's a wide range of status for various bits of land, and you do have to look at it case by case, which is important. It's something that isn't specific to the plan itself, but discuss after the meeting.
Well, it's the intention of the plan that makes it available that it can be for sale and under certain circumstances, otherwise not precluded from being for sale.
Does a reference to a case by case cover that?
I think so.
Yeah, I think the plan at the moment as it's written does allow for individual consideration by council and by council.
Thank you.
Page 16. Councillor Hopkins.
Yes, Mayor Chair, I just think when the committee recommends to the council with item number 7, I think it should indicate that the proposed additional wording, a harbour railway work programme, will be developed. I think it should say by whom, and may possibly even identify where costs could sit. The difficulty with it is, are we as the council actually taking on a whole new area of cost and responsibility? So I'm just saying, I think it should be a little bit more definitive as to whose job it is that program be developed.
The reality is the council does have quite a major responsibility for the railway. That's the legal advice we have.
Yes.
And so we need to be mindful of that. Happy to have Mr. Jorgensen elaborate further.
I think the wording in the harbour plan at the moment is, or the proposed wording is appropriate for what needs to be done. There is quite a lot of work to establish what that work program is and by whom, and obviously a lot of collaboration to be done with Monroe Steam and Rail, key stakeholder in that area. The harbour plan itself is a relatively high level. It doesn't need to state everything to the nth degree, and it doesn't in most cases. I think this is adequate for the harbour plan to signal that we're intending to work with Monroe Steam and Rail to develop a program over time.
I think they're, we will be very open to what they bring forward as what they think should be their work priorities, and we need to make it fit. So it'll be ultimately council that needs to agree to whatever the plan is. But this is stating that rather than the relatively ad hoc way that things have progressed, that we do need to have a more structured plan. The area is used by so many more people now. There's potential for conflict between users is much greater. And so to have a very good understanding and expectation of what can happen and where, it's critical to make sure the area is managed and enjoyed by So I'm okay with it as is. Do take your point. The further explanation. Anything else on page 16? Page 17.
I said there's only 4 pages in the row. Just a general comment when the thing's done. The reference to the wharf as being important level A, shovel readiness amber. I'm just wondering if we can't simply just use a visual to do that, and not that terminology seems to me to be a bit clumsy. There's probably a colour-coded system of traffic lights throughout would be just an easier way to do it. That's all.
The plan contains those traffic lights.
Yeah, I know. Yes, I'm
So, so it's stating in writing what will be shown graphically.
And what I'm saying is I'm not sure it needs to state in writing. But anyway, that's fine.
It's a change from what's there, so we need, it doesn't need to be in writing in the plan, but what needs to be in writing here. So this isn't verbatim taken, put in.
But isn't this new wording that's going in?
So yeah, just for clarification, I should have said, there's always an exception to every rule. So when I said this is verbatim what's written in, the exception is where we've got project titles. So
Oh.
you may read, where it says Readiness Amber, you may search shovels
Okay.
with an amber on it.
So I was right to raise it and you'd address the issue even before. Well, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Page 18. Yeah, page 19. Hopkins.
Yeah, sorry, last one from me, Gary, but look, page 14, number 14, I do have some concern that we may be engaged in having another argument with the community about roading. That we're saying that this turning circle will be moved to the entrance. It wasn't a matter that attracted submission. I do suspect it might be a matter that could attract opposition. And I would like to see it a little bit more conditional than it is at the moment. After consultation, or there will be consultation on moving it, I don't know. My view is, I have anxieties about it. And I'm not sure I agree with it either.
I think this is a plan. Sorry, I'll go. First.
That's right. Just in response to that, no response from our community. I think it certainly isn't a negative. I think what we've got currently is a half turning circle right in the middle of the playground, which for me, and I've been down there and had concerns watching some of the vehicle movements. You can't get a trailer or anything around there. People are backing off into a playground. Like, I think safety wise, it's a given for me. And I don't think we go namby-pamby on the wording. I think we say this is going to happen. And I actually think that most people will look at that and common sense will say that makes sense.
I think I totally agree. And originally, it was deliberately made the way it was so that it was a multi-point turn, and yeah, it was based on the traffic that we had at that time. The traffic has increased quite significantly with the popularity of the area, and we've also got a playground that's got play pieces closer to it than probably envisaged at that time. So I think it is important that it happens, but it will also be important we, basically council does approve what the design ultimately will look like before it happens. And if we feel there needs to be good consultation with the community, that can be at that stage. So it is a problem now that we need to deal with. So saying it will be changed is Councillor Tavendale says, I think quite appropriate. Anything else on page 19? Go to page 20. I think page 21. Page 22. Councillor Holding.
So item 21, the wording effects, are we looking at reviewing the effects on people, or is it more the committee, the community value lighting, wildlife and overall look and feel of the harbour?
Yeah, perhaps that wording could be clarified a wee bit. It is primarily around the amenity type effect, and more importantly, probably the level of, or the colour of the lighting that's wanted in that area, which I imagine move around the 2,700 fraction line. So yeah, the idea is just give some guidance about this is the colour of lighting we want in the different areas. So that's what's intended by effects.
So I think if we just add to that, this includes a review of LED lighting effects on people and wildlife and the amenity values of the area.
Yeah,
Comfortable with that?
probably should be lightings and apostrophes too.
in the
Okay, anything else? Page?
Just shifted all the roading things out into the different area. It is a major concern about the access to the harbour completely, and it stretches a lot further back than just the harbour. It's right back to top of 7th Street, lower end of town, just where heavy traffic can get to and not get to.
Yeah, a number of us have had a number of conversations with staff around that, and I think it's fair to say, you know, there's been some good progress on that to the extent. Probably well, there will be a setting up of transport operators. So they are able to be, you know, provide advice, and there will be a look at some of the problem areas as a result of. So we're keen to make sure that the area is safe and accessible, and we don't want to create a situation where we make something safe for one set of users, but it actually makes it unsafe for others.
Thank you.
the second part of that is there will come to council shortly as well about considering doing a spatial plan, and the spatial plan is also covers those access points into the different areas on route. Spatial plan on route. So we'll look at those as part of that review. We'll look at the access points like the Wandsworth Street, State Highway, and the light as well. Those different components which then complements what we could have a very piece done on the harbour plan.
Thank you, Neil.
22, 23.
Hey, Kuchar,
Yes.
just a question. No, actually, I presume it'll come up at the council meeting. Will we explain why things are, will there be an explanation to the full council as to why things have been removed? Like 24E and F?
So a lot of teams realigned really added into the harbour plan initially because with the linkages defined to sort of make sure the linkage to the harbour plaza area and the town centre were interlinked. However, following the feedback from the community, clearly it's a bigger issue in the harbour plan, and it's really an issue that council would consider, not the harbour area committee. So the harbour area committee made some views. We want to make comments about that, but really it was considered by the harbour committee that wasn't appropriate to be in the harbour plan. Essentially, the discussion. It was quite.
Okay. Good. Right. So is there? Yeah. So is there anything else that you felt that should be looking at and addressing that weren't already covered by draft changes?
The scales, lower scales, and the overall plane bridge. What do we agree to?
Page 19.
So that's page number 17. So what we've added on the new process around rail connections in history. It's sort of, living in Vales that are nearer to the railway train, and one home with old career bridge numbers to make a bit of a reserve area there. So when we draw up the marketplace plan, we'll show that area.
But you move it to where the railway line is.
Oh, more over towards that, yeah. So it's quite a small area, but all the areas of interest are in the one area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other bits? Let's talk about
Controls council have over, if that's to be made into something, signage and colour and along in the building. Is there some sort of restriction?
The only regulated document on that is this plan. So it's important to make sure that the plan review that the rules are in there, that the Harbour Area Committee wants that area.
Just around the removal of certain projects, potential projects from the harbour plan, like the road realignment. Just wondering what the best way would be. I want to make sure that the feedback that we've received, which was, you know, quite clear, but obviously wasn't with the detail that we have, is clearly provided to council. And I'm just a little bit worried that for this project, by just taking them out and moving on, that we're not actually providing officially to council the feedback or not paying homage to it all. So can we, not sure, I'm just probably looking for guidance as the best way to make sure we are drawing attention to the responses there rather than just ignoring them.
But what I'd suggest is that there be a number 3 motion, and that it's worded whatever way you want it, but along the lines of the Harbour Area Committee recommends that council take note of the feedback on submissions regarding Lower Thames Street, and include that in any consideration of projects.
I'll do that.
Something like that.
So on that basis, then, if we're talking about sale of land, should or does the Harbour Committee have a view on if someone privately owns a building, and it could make a huge difference to the saleability of that building, because if someone's going to invest a considerable amount of money in a building, they want to own the land underneath, does it make any difference if we have a view on that or not? Do we have a view, and should we have a view? Because it then could feed through to council on the same basis as what Lower Thames Street does.
Yeah, I think there's been feedback, particularly on empty land and people's views on selling land, but we didn't have a lot of discussion on land that actually isn't occupied already, done the buildings. If you take, for example, pretty much most of the Harbour Street area where the council owns the land as Harbour Ward's endowment land, and the land can be sold. The proceeds need to go back into the harbour area, but equally there's buildings on that which for some people to actually develop them, to invest quite considerable amounts of money in, potentially millions of dollars, then to have the freehold of the land is really important. I don't believe there's any. I haven't heard any concern about the sales of those bits of land other than maybe give us a decent return or not. But from that perspective, it would be, you could add a 4th motion, which is more explicit, which says that that land in the area can be considered on a case-by-case basis, or you can be more specific.
Yeah, well, I and I know a number of others have been approached by a certain person, and she's quite happy to discuss it, which is Carol Scott. There's been potential for sale there. to someone that was going to spend supposedly $2 or $3 million. And I think if that's the scenario is there, where the building's already owned, and it's only the land underneath, and it's going to give this building another life, and it's all protected by what they can and can't do to it anyway, are we then supporting that should be the case?
Councillor Taylor?
I guess my thoughts on that are that the Harbour Area Committee should be seeing those come to us. And I think we've sort of said that we are open to it on a case-by-case basis. And I guess usually property things come through the Assets Committee, and maybe we just need to be a bit more of the mind that anything in the harbour actually comes via the Harbour Area Committee for recommendation to council, so that we have a chance around this table to put the view forward to council, because we've actually spent that time on the harbour plan.
That's pretty much it. Mr. Jordan?
I was going to say, just from a process point of view, how this works is you get approached by somebody who wishes to freehold land. So council has a delegation to make decisions on that on a case-by-case basis. There's nothing in the harbour plan. The harbour plan is not a formal binding document. It's a plan. So when those cases come up, officers would prepare a report and look at the options, look at what financially is involved, present that to the Harbour Area Committee for consideration. That's harbour land, and then Harbour Area Committee can make a recommendation through to council, and then council can decide whether to accept that recommendation or make another recommendation. If it's land outside of the harbour area boundary, we'll go to the Assets Committee and follow that same process. So it's very much a case-by-case basis, and lead members are the only ones who've got the delegation to make decisions around a sale or not.
It'll have to follow due process. I fully understand that, and it should. Yeah.
So yeah, certainly that can happen.
Yeah, and yeah, it is really important as far as those buildings go that people can invest in, and they can have enough freedom to adapt to new uses that still look after the heritage of the building, but obviously create modern uses for them that make sure that they're protected into the future.
Well, there's quite a few examples now with Posh Towel, and now we've got Smash Palace. I mean, it's great that someone's going to put some money in and give them another life.
I think just make one further comment is, unfortunately, the land in the harbour area is often in quite large blocks. And so what it means is that for us to sell upfront, it often needs to go through a subdivision process. So it can get quite complicated and quite expensive, but just understanding what those costs are and who's going to pay for them, and yeah, how that doing a subdivision, then do we actually go a bit broader? So yeah, it can get a little bit complicated, but it does take a bit of time to work through exactly what we recommend.
Councillor Wallstein,
Yeah, I'm not going to add much more, but just to support what George Kelcher has said in terms of that. It's a case by case. And if the application was going to result in a major economic improvement for the area, for the building, whatever else, but it's something which council will consider on the day.
Just picking up on Councillor Tappendale's point about explaining submissions, assuming of the council who's going to hear your recommendations, I would like to know if the Harbour Committee does want the right to look at property proposals in the harbour and then recommend to council what should be done about them. And I think your suggestion of another resolution that adds to the ones that are there already is actually most essential. That the Harbour Committee recommends to council that future land use proposals be considered by it for recommendation to council or something like that. I don't know, but
we've got the responsibility now. I think a motion along the lines of that we continue, that the Harbour Area Committee continues to have the responsibility of matters in that area.
Responsibility to recommend.
To recommend, yeah.
Yeah. Something like that, yes. On a case-by-case basis, yes.
So we have number 4. Okay, any further discussion? Councillor Taylor.
I was just going to say I'm happy to move 1 through to 4 based on the discussions we've had.
Thank you. Moved. We have a seconder.
Is that 1, 2, 3, 4 on the paper? Or
1, 2 that
the
we've
new
got,
fours?
and 2, which is around
Property,
relations.
sales and leases, basically. Okay. Any further discussion?
Just to speak to that, I think that the lack of real discussion or huge discussion today around what we're doing just shows how much work we've put into this, and that we've actually spent a lot of time on a lot of this. That's why it probably is something that's sitting quite comfortably with most of the committee now, which I think is cool. I really think it's important that we don't have the submissions that came through just disappear, and to know we want people to be clear that when they put a submission to us that it follows a process, and even if it's not being decided on at the time, that it certainly will be taken into account and not lost. Yeah, I hope.
Is that, so the other is we've got a draft response here, which is so my expectation is that there will be some customization of those we needed to make sure we're looking at covering people's particular areas of concern or interest, and I'll get that as soon as reasonably possible adoption by council. Thank you. Yeah. Which will be on the 8th. Mr. Clark.
Just going back a step because we haven't voted on that. I just want to be clear about the sale of land. Is that like where there's existing buildings? Wasn't it the general feeling from the submissions and public sale of land?
There was mixed views on I don't think a case by case basis pretty much covered.
But what area, like?
At the moment, we haven't.
Waterfront Road. There's certain areas you've sort of designated as reserved.
There's pretty much nothing along Waterfront Road. Like the traditional Waterfront Road, we've got a new bit of Waterfront Road, which is hotels on. Yeah, but from the corner in the harbour through, I don't think there's any.
Isn't that a reserve?
Because
you say last.
the first part's reserved, so that's out off the table. Yeah, there's the corner site, which is more, took that more as being great, at least with that, but that currently is freehold, been sale in the past, so it's looking at that. Reality is we need to basically have a process for the sale of any part such as that, which allows people to have to say, but equally it's not about locking everything up and not changing anything. It's trying to get the balance. Places for people to enjoy and having things for them to enjoy there as well.
So the current scenario would be, the current scenario would be, as Mr. Kilton said, that when people approach us with requests to purchase land under buildings they already own, as the current control. Not aware of any other people who have approached us wanting to buy land that's actually freehold.
Because we always talked about some clear site. That's important.
New shafts, materials, but not to the extent that we haven't had nothing either. We've heard today separately the challenges of wanting to buy and create being too scared that they're going to have so many restrictions that it's just not possible to do. So it is about getting that done. Back down. Harbour is a place for people enjoy, people have their recreation, have their boats, and be able to do the activities that they've always been able to do. And we want to make sure we keep that, ensure that the whole time is here as best as possible. So, Councillor Tavendale?
Just wanted to talk that, design, utilize that kind of thing. And so I would like to think, for instance, Cornerside, if we ever talked about that as a group, we'd be saying, well, hold on, are we a wee bit preemptive here? We haven't actually got a spatial plan or something like that there in place to try and set that. So I think there are discussions that are still to come.
Right. I'll put that, we've got the four parts to that motion. I'll put them all together. Those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. And if we go to before I close the meeting, I just really want to thank getting this plan through to this stage. It's taken a lot longer than we wanted. I think it's been a few steps we would rather have gone without along the way, but that's all helped form the plan. And I am convinced we've got something which is going to make sure we keep and that we can actually help grow to get more, not to bring the wildlife special place that holds around the harbour. And I'm not talking about the North Taga Yacht Power Boat, no, it is a special place, and just probably knowledge markets ongoing affection for the area and involvement in the development. Anyway, he's been consistent. Thank you to you all for your participation. And this will go through, as I said before, to the council meeting on the 8th of December, and all going well, it'll go through pretty much as it is. She'll watch that one with interest. But thank you again, and thanks everyone who has joined us on the live stream as well today. And with that, clear the meeting closed.
Thank you.
Like we need a round of